Okay, so you finished doing your food records and put your information into the GB Health Watch. So you should have all of your information. And now I want to kind of walk you through how to do the written report. It's pretty straightforward, but I think it might just be easier to walk you through it. So written report to include the following components. So the first part, you're going to do your calorie and nutrient intake. So review your calorie breakdown, and you're going to use the following format. When you do your written report, I want it done as a report, but at the top part of your report, go ahead and include these tables. So you'll have table 1, and you can go ahead and copy and paste this table and fill your information in. I have it in PDF as well as in Word document, or you can create your own table to look like this, whatever's easiest for you within your Word document. So your first table is going to be, we're going to be using the daily reports as well as the 3-day average. You're going to have table 2, it's going to look just like this, and you're going to have table 3, and then ultimately you're going to have a list. So this section 1 of the written report is going to include these tables in this list. To get this information, where you're going to look is you're going to go back into your GB Health Watch and pick the days that you recorded. Make sure you've saved the days. So I think I have data. Well, I'm just going to go. I know I have data on the first, so we'll go to that day. So you're going to pick each of the days that you have recorded data and look at the food log for that day. It's going really slow today for some reason. So you're going to pick the day that you have put into there, and you're going to look at each of the individual 3 days that you have done. If you've done more than 3 days, feel free to go ahead and add that to your table and make 7 days in there. So you're going to look at these days, and we're going to want to run a report. So this was the information. So see the report, run the report for that individual day, and it will come up with the data that you're going to need. So if I kind of click between the information that you're going to need, so in table 1 here, you're looking for the calories in, so your food calorie intake, your fitness calorie output, and then the calories remaining. And you're going to do that for each of the days. So you go back to your daily report, and the information you're looking for is your total daily calorie goal is right here, food calories in, food calories out. And so you're going to look at that on each individual day. So this was June 1st, but I'm going to go back and look at the other 2 days I did as well and fill that information into that table. So you're going to fill each of those in. Ultimately, you're going to run your, we'll call it, it's a 7-day report for your 3-day average. They'll pick up whatever days are within that 7-day period of time and give you an average intake. You only need to enter 3 days. You can enter 7 if you'd like more accurate information, but you're only required to do 3. So that's where you're getting the information for this. And then you're going to come down and look at each of the individual days again, the daily reports there, and fill in the percent of calories from each of those meals. So you're going to, again, look at that daily report and get this information to fill in this portion of the sheet. So it's going to give you the percent of calories for each of these meals. You're going to do this each day. And then again, your 3-day average, you can, I'm not sure that it will show you that on the 7-day report. I believe what you'll have to do is add up the 3 days, divide by 3, which will give you the average percent for each of those. So that'll give you some information there for when you do your written part of that. So that's where that information is coming from. If you didn't have a snack, put 0. If you didn't eat lunch, put 0. But we want the percentages throughout the day to kind of get an idea of where you eat most of your calories. Okay. And then once you've completed all of that, you're going to use your 3-day average from what we'll call the 7-day report. So we'll go back here, and this is giving me my daily report, but what I'm going to need for this next set of information is the 7-day average. So I'm going to go ahead and download this 7-day report. 7-day average report. And save it. And ultimately, this here is going to be the report that you will save and upload to Moodle as one of the documents. So this is the report you're going to need for that. So it's giving your 7-day average. And again, if on any of those days you ate less than 70% of your estimated calorie needs, it's not going to show up in here. So you're going to need to go back and enter another day. So here it's going to give you your calorie summary. So this is what your 3-day average is giving you. So 3-day average intake, 3-day average output, and calories remaining. To fill in the part that we're looking for right here, So we're looking to find out carbohydrate intake, what was your carbohydrate intake, protein intake, fat intake, so on and so forth. All of that information is going to come from this report. I think I've lost it now. I've got too many windows open. So all of that's going to come from that 7-day report. Let's see if I can find it again that I just downloaded. Whoop, there it is. Sorry, making you dizzy. So this is going to show you percent of protein. It's going to give you grams of carbohydrate. What you're filling in are percents though. So on the report that you're completing, oh shoot, so I can get both open. So again, if you're looking at this, you're going to be putting in here percent of carbohydrates. So you're looking for percent of calories from carbohydrates, the number here. Same thing with protein, same thing with fat, percent of fat there. The mono, the trans fat, so if you have any of those, it does drop down, and for those, what it's giving you is grams. And so you're going to need to convert those grams to percent of calories. And so I have an asterisk down here on the table itself that's going to show you how to do that calculation to get there. Okay, so you're going to have all of those listed as percentages. When it comes to omega-3s, you can put it in as grams, but where you see percents, you need to do that as percentages. Okay, protein, I do want you to put in the grams of protein that you have consumed, because as we looked at the protein chapter, as you will look at the protein chapter, you can determine what your protein needs are based on grams per kilogram of body weight. So you'll need that information there. All right, so that's how you're going to fill out that table. It's going to come from that 3-day average, which is the 7-day average report. And then as we continue down to looking at the list of foods here, what you're going to do is look at, and you probably notice that you have these smiley faces, either red, green, or yellow smiley faces. So the first one on the individual daily reports, let me pull that back up again. So if we go back to the individual daily report, now I'm back on my daily report here. When you look down here, it's giving you your green smiley faces for the individual day, your orange flat faces, and then it actually gives you the sad faces. And what you can do with this, and what I'm looking for specifically for this part of the report is, let me get back to that page. For right here where it's saying nutrients with a rad sad face on each of the daily reports, you're going to list those, what are the nutrients, and then what foods caused it. So that's where you're going to the individual daily report to look at. You're going to list that cholesterol was a problem, sodium was a problem, and click on this one little button here, and it's going to show you it's going to show you here in terms of, you know, what was the breakdown, what were the foods that caused this. So the biggest contributor really is, you know, having eggs, but what were some of the foods that led to getting sort of a negative mark there in terms of cholesterol, and you're going to list these foods. So you're going to do that, or you can come down here, and this is probably the biggest problem for most students, actually most people, I think, is this cholesterol issue. And so here it's showing you, if we can pull it up, there we go. It's showing you what are some of the foods that contributed to the sodium intake on that day. I purposefully put in here, and I found this interesting, I used frozen stir-fried vegetables, which normally I would do fresh, and just because I wanted the effect of it. So if you look at that, it's like these ones here tended to have a lot of extra sodium. So it allows you to kind of go back and rethink some of the foods that you're eating. If salt intake is a little bit high for you, where are some areas that you can cut down on that? So that's kind of what that's showing you there. So you're going to list sodium as the issue. These are the specific foods that were an issue for you. And you're going to do that for each of the individual days. So this is day 1 for me, but I'm going to go look at my second day. Do I have any problems there? And if cholesterol is a common problem on each 3 of the days, you can just add to it the list of foods that come up with in that pie chart for each 3 of those days. So don't list them separately. But we're looking at each of the 3 days, what are the different ones that have come up and what are some of the foods that contributed to this. So you could say cholesterol was a problem on day 1 and these were the foods that contributed. It was also a problem on day 2 and these were some of the different foods that maybe contributed to it, so on and so forth. Okay. So hopefully that clarifies that. Then what you're going to do is look at your 3-day report again, see if we can find that, and what are the green, yellow, and red faces on those days. So if we go back to the 3-day report, see if we can find that on here. Here's our 3-day report, which again is showing up as a 7-day average, but it's only 3 days. And so as we scroll down, you're going to see that there are specific foods. So did well in fiber, did well on meeting my fat calories. Cholesterol is a problem overall in the 3-day average. Omega-3s were good, so on and so forth. So it's going to give you those. It doesn't give you that breakdown that it did on the daily report, but you can kind of go through and list each of these that are on the 3-day. Okay. So when you're coming in here, green, what were all the nutrients that were there? You're just listing the nutrient. Did well in fat, did well in omega-3s. Yellow, didn't do so well in whatever they were. Protein, saturated fat, didn't do as well. And then which ones were you either not meeting your needs or you were excess, and you're going to list all of those in there. And it could be the vitamins, it'll list any of that in there. So that's really what you're doing, is you're gathering these tables from the information. You're going to submit the 7-day average, which is your 3-day average for you. You're going to submit that into the Dropbox. You're also going to be doing a written report then that includes all this information. And from these tables, you're going to jump into actually the written portion of it. So you're going to use the information from your analysis, the 3 tables, and the list above to analyze your nutrient intake. So a couple things. One, how does your total calorie intake compare with your estimated needs? So what here I'm really looking for is what were your estimated needs and what was your intake. So if I was eating 500 calories a day and my estimated calorie intake was 1,000 calories a day, I'm only meeting 50% of my estimated calorie needs. So you're kind of commenting on it like that. Or if I'm eating 3,000 calories a day and my estimated needs are 2,000 calories a day, I'm over consuming by 30%, 33%. So comment on it like that. And then comment on your physical activity, what percent of your calories. So if I'm burning 200 calories a day and my calorie allotment is, say, 2,000 calories a day, about 10% of my calories are being burned by physical activity. So I just want you to kind of comment on that. If you're consuming more than you use, what foods would be the easiest to reduce? So again, digging back into those 3 days, are there any foods that you could easily cut out? Maybe you're drinking sugar-sweetened beverages, or you're drinking coffee drinks. Are there any places where you think you could easily make some adjustments to lower your calorie intake? And oftentimes I find with students that their calorie intake is far less than what their calorie needs are estimated at, and I think that happens anytime you start writing down your food. You tend to eat a little differently on that day. You tend to eat a little healthier. So if that's the case, what I want you to look at is over that 3-day average, what is your calorie deficit? So we can go back to my example here of my 7-day intake here. So on average, I had 483 calories remaining each day. And just to give you a better glimpse in terms of, is that really realistic? So if I had an extra 480 calories a day, multiply that number by 7. So let's just round it up to 500 because it's easier. So if I had an extra 500 calories remaining each day that I didn't use, so my deficit was really 500 calories, that means over 7 days I have an extra 3,500 calorie deficit. And then I want you to determine, so if I was doing that ongoing, so there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So take that number, and in this case they tend to equal out. So I'm a deficit of 3,500 calories each week. Divide that by 3,500. For me it would be 1. So I would be losing about a pound of weight a week. And assess that. Am I losing a pound of weight a week? Is that the case? In my case, I'm not losing a pound of weight a week. So what might have been the problem? Was I not completely accurate in terms of the foods? Perhaps because I was taking this nutrition class, I was eating a little healthier and I'm a little bit lower on my intake? Or what do you think was the reason why it was so much different? Or perhaps the assessment of calories in the program is not appropriate, so you could question that too. So I want you just to kind of comment on why you think that was happening. So that would be bullet point here. If you're right within your calories, so if it's estimating you at 2,000 calories a day, you're eating 1,900 calories, you're close to your estimate. Take a look at your calorie intake throughout the day. So on this, what you're doing is looking at where are your calories coming in. So the breakdown of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, what was the percent? So if we go back to right up here, what is your breakdown? Do you tend to eat most of your calories in the evening, dinner and evening? Do you skip breakfast and are you getting 80% here? Do you have a fairly even distribution throughout the day? just comment on how well distributed your calories are throughout the day. Are you an evening eating or your morning eating? And that's what that's looking at there. What could you do to balance your meals? So if you do tend to skip those meals, what are some ways you could balance those throughout the day? I mean, what might you take from, say, if you don't eat breakfast and you're a big dinner eater or you're eating after dinner, what might you do to be able to balance that out? What are some of the foods that you could specifically put in there to balance that out? And then look at your macronutrient intake, so your percent of calories from carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And are you meeting the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges? You can go back into, I believe it's chapter 1 that actually talks, or actually chapter 2 talks about the macronutrient distribution ranges, but I also have them listed here for you. So when you're looking at your recommended dietary allowances, the recommendation is that you meet these in terms of percentages. So how is your diet in comparison to those? And that's what that question's asking. Review each of your green, yellow, red-faced nutrients. What are you doing well in your diet? What needs improvement? How can you achieve this? So here you've listed them above. Now you're going to really talk about you're doing well. So I'm doing really well with calcium intake, probably because I eat, I eat cheese and I have lots of dairy in my diet, and whatever it might be. Or I'm doing well with my omega-3 intake because I have fish a couple times a week, so that's why I'm doing well with that. So I want you to kind of look at why is it showing that you're doing well in those nutrients, and then why are some of the nutrients problematic, and what are some foods that you could add to it. So what could you do to improve your diet? What are some of the foods that you could add to it? And then plan for improvement. So pick one of the days. You can do a couple things. You can pick one of the days that had your lowest, this GB score, and just to take you back to what that is. So this is it's just a score of your overall diet quality, but you can look at each of your individual days will have a GB score. So pick the one with the lowest GB score and use that day to improve. And so what I'm wanting you to do there is actually look at one of your lowest scoring days and make suggestions for ways to increase that score. So what needs to be changed? Then enter the changes into a new date. So go ahead and take your worst day, copy it into a new date on the calendar, maybe far away from where your 7-day average is, just so it doesn't get fit in there. And then go in and adjust, right? So you can go back in and pick that day and see if I can pull this up. So if I were to go in here and go and look at my food log, and let's say I'm going to pick, one of my days that maybe was not as good. I think the 28th. Oh, maybe I didn't do anything on the 28th. And so I'm going to pick one of my days that was maybe not as good of a day, that had a lower score that day. And you can actually adjust. So you can either add foods to breakfast to make it better, maybe modify some of these foods. Maybe I'm going to get rid of, instead of 2% milk, I'm going to drop it down to non-fat milk. Maybe instead of eggs, I'm going to have egg whites for breakfast. Instead of pepperoni pizza, maybe I'm going to have something a little healthier. I'm going to have fish. So go ahead and look what the first day is, make your changes, and then look at how the calorie comes out. The other thing you can do is also increase activity that day. So I'm going to add some exercise and see how that balances it out. So basically you're kind of taking what you're doing on the worst day and you're making that a good day. And then what you're going to do with that information, one is write it up. What did you change? What was your original day looking like? What were you consuming? And what foods did you specifically change? Or what activities did you add that day to balance it out to have a better day? And then you're going to go ahead and pull up the report. So we'll do that here. I didn't change it, but you're going to pull up the report and then go ahead and pull up your go ahead and do a PDF of what that new day looks like. And then you're going to submit. So I'm going to pull up a PDF of that individual day. And then you're going to go ahead and submit, save it, and so on. And then you're going to go ahead and submit that actual good day into your reports there in Moodle. So you can see here, you'll have a GB score. You might comment on that. I started out with a score of 88, and I improved it up to a score of 95. And that's what you'll be doing for this last little section here. So have at it, have fun. If you have questions, you can always email me. Hopefully walking you through this tutorial was helpful. I know it was lengthy, but hopefully that helps you understand a little bit better. And have fun with it.